Hey, I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine, welcoming you to another edition of Where'd You Get Your Funk From? For this episode, I am pleased to welcome Canadian singer, songwriter, guitarist, and harmonica player Harrison Kennedy. He's an original member of the 1970s soul group Chairmen of the Board, which from 1970 to 1973 amassed 9 top 40 R&B hits. Those included Give Me Just a Little More Time, You Got Me Dangling on a String, Everything's Tuesday, Pay the Piper, Chairman of the Board, and Finders Keepers.
Amen.
Returning to recording in 2003, after a protracted break, he transformed into a prominent blues artist. His 9 blues albums include 2016's Juno Award-winning Blues Album of the Year, titled This Is From Here, and 2022's Thanks for Tomorrow. Harrison, I'm thankful for today to be with you. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm grateful to still be here. I'm going to be 83 on the March 9th, and still got gigs happening, and I'm digging it. Feeling fine.
That's fantastic. So glad you're still able to give us that fantastic music. Grateful for that. And where are you today, Harrison?
I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada, near Niagara Falls. And yeah.
That's my bucket list, Niagara Falls. Not been.
Yeah. Yeah. About 40 clicks from here.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Certainly a fan going back to those early days. We'll talk about that and also what you're doing nowadays. So,
alrighty.
The way the show works, the first question is just the title of the show. Where'd you get your funk from? And, use the term funk sort of, generally in terms of, not everyone's into funk per se, but, there's always funky situations that we find ourselves in. And, I think it applies to the music in terms of the rhythm and the groove, where you got that from, and also how that kind of informed, who you are as just a person, Harrison.
Mm-hmm. Well, George Clinton and I were friends with Parliament Funkadelic, and we were talking about it one time. And I was asking about how they dress up and things like that. He said, 2 words: it's theater arts. I never forgot that. It's theater arts. And I was fortunate enough to have people like McKinley, and some of the guys in the Parliament Funkadelic, in the Parliaments, to come with us on tour over France or England rather, and through the United States as well. And they were the guys playing on a lot of our tunes, Advance to the Music, and the album we did, Skin I'm In. Those guys were solid. And what I loved and respected about them was the work ethic. And a lot of them were very well educated. And I saw and understood where they were coming from when they said it's theater arts, because they were different when they were off the stage. But when we were on the stage, it was, you're standing in front of an audience, so you got to give them something, and those guys definitely could do that, So yeah, that's the funk. You got to bring the funk, to get that junk called money. And do it again,
Yeah. Well, so, and of course, blues is, funk is so informed by the blues, also. So it's all interconnected,
Oh yeah. I love the funk, man. I wanted to do the one they gave to Danny to sing. I wanted to do that because it was funky, but he knocked it out of the park. And Danny had nothing wrong with Danny Woods when he was singing. This dude could something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Harrison, back before then, could you just share with us a little bit of how and why you first gravitated towards music as a pursuit?
Well, it's odd, I never really wanted to, yet I was always around it. I grew up in a house where my mother was raising 3 boys by herself. And back in the day, we were what was called a drink house. Mom would get the booze. People like Lonnie Johnson, Dakota Staten, Duke Ellington, to go on, would come to my house. And I grew up thinking everyone sounded like that. Duke would get on the piano and play. As a matter of fact, I thought I was playing the guitar, playing a piano one time. When I heard him, he was playing blink, 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 and everybody laughed. And I thought, oh, that's cool. So when no one's around, I went downstairs and found that note. Blink, blink, blink. And I told my mom, look, Mom, I'm playing piano. I was 7. But I grew up with that, and it was fun. Mom would cook food. It was a Sunday. Back in those days, it was against the law to drink. But that was when Mom could make some money, $1 a shot. And the people were fine. There were never any fights. They would play darts, and I would hear the music. Billie Holiday stayed in my house. Of course, I didn't know who these people were until later on in life. When I was like 11 or 12, maybe 13, I realized who these people were. But because when I was younger, and that's what you hear, I assumed everyone was like that. And I found out when I was 11, 12, 13, they weren't, So I got it from there. I was raised basically by 5 women. My great-grandma, who was like the boss, and my grandma. She was, that was kind of like the Irish connection. She was a short, small woman with kind of reddish and freckles. My mother and her 2 sisters. So I grew up with that variety on a street where most of the people were first-generation Ukrainian, Slavic. So I had things like petahad and cabbage rolls and things like that, besides our own cooking. And it was a community. So the word community is like intrinsic in me and how I see life and success. And I see failure when community gets hurt or not there, or it's, it's just not important. But to me, it's always important. So when I'm singing and when I'm playing music, I always reach for that feeling with my audience. They're not different from me. We're the same. General Johnson told me one time, he said, Harry, he says, you got to sing to them. When you write, sing to the masses. I said, what do you mean? He says, they got to feel as if they could say that too. So, just hanging around with these guys that were brilliant. And General was brilliant, and we almost became a trio, like a writing trio. He wanted to do it, but his partner didn't like me that much, so it didn't happen. But he thought I had a good, I like melody. And he thought I was good at that, it would help me. But it didn't happen, so it's happening now with my life the way it is, 20 years traveling steadily to Europe and playing all over there. I won the Charles Cross as kind of the equivalent of a Grammy in France. So when you just do what you can do, man, I don't have no chip on my shoulder. I'm not angry. I feel good. I feel grateful. And that's we got the funk.
Well, Harry, when did you realize that you were going to pursue music, though, as
I'll tell you,
an occupation?
I was forced into it. I was in university. At that time, I had no mom and no dad. I asked myself, what can you do? And I thought, I can think. So I got accepted into university, and I was taking a double major in English and chemistry, but I didn't have any money. So I got through the first year, but I was falling down on books and stuff like that. It was very, very expensive. You could, the class that went ahead of you usually would put the books up for sale, but I didn't have the money, so I decided. I had a friend who played bass, and he says, man, you should start singing. You could start singing the blues and stuff like that. Well, I sang in the church. I was a tenor in our church here at Hamilton, and I liked to sing, and my mother made me sing in front of the people that were downstairs. And so that's how I first started making up tunes. My first one I made up for my Uncle Clifford, who was sitting on the couch and didn't know his cigarette's gone out and his ashes are all over the floor. I sang that and got a handful of quarters. Then Mom sent me to bed. So anyway, I put a band together and we started singing. I started playing, and I was down in Toronto, Ontario, and Holland, Dozier and Holland were in the audience, and they approached me after to come to Detroit. They were they said a super group together of 3 individuals that could carry alone. They could carry a show. But they wanted to put us 3. They were looking, and I had no idea that when I went down there that it was an audition. That's where I met General and Danny and Eddie, and I started to sing an Otis Redding tune, and they freaked out. General said, "Man, we've been looking for people all week." I know, what the hell are you talking about, looking for people all week? So that's when I found out I was in the group. The thing is that no one knew, no one, not the chairman of the board, not Eddie Holland, none of them knew that I had relatives in Detroit. And one of them was a police officer who was 6'8". They called him Wookie. And my relatives came up from Florida and were settled. They owned 2 Baskin and Robbins stores in Detroit. I kept it to myself. I was there to sing. I wasn't there for any other reason. And I never told anyone that I had relatives there. They didn't know that. They used to think I was this Canadian guy who, came out of the woods and shit.
Took a leap of faith, yeah.
I did. And it just seemed, and I'm taking leaps of faith. Basically, you put that very well, because it's a leap of faith based on, I think I can do it. I practice it. I'm not going to try to jump across a chasm that's like 40 feet, but I'll try one that's 4 feet.
Harry, did you?
I had a certain amount of confidence in myself, and I said, what the hell? If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. And boom, we put out that record, and next thing you know, we got a million seller. Blew my mind, man. I was like, whoa.
Harry, did you know that they had left Motown and started their own thing? Did they explain that to you?
Eddie and I had conversations about that on many things. It was Eddie that told me about this group. Doom, 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 doom. Everybody knows what that groove is. He told me he got that from listening to First Nations people play drums. But he told me what happened with him writing for artists in Motown and not getting paid. So he set up a meeting with Barry, and Barry okayed the meeting. And he told me when he went there was this dude standing in the door, was 300 pounds, 6'9", and told him to go and sit down. He was supposed to be there and he waited and he waited and he waited and he waited. And then Barry Gordy came in with his Florsheim pipes and sat and tapped him and says, "What can I do for you?" And these are the words that Eddie Holland told me. He said, I got up and told him I quit. And Soros and that was litigious. They had the court trials, and I understand that they won something like $10 million. That's what I've heard. And that's when he decided they had this tune, give me just a little more time, which they had done between the 3 of them, Brian and Lamont and Eddie. And so they put that together, and then they started looking for people. And then they found General, and they found Danny Woods, and they found Eddie Custis. Now, Eddie Custis has a relative here in Hamilton who's a star football player, Bernie Custis. He even had a school named after him, and me. And off we went, and traveling around. It was a really heady experience. The things that I met, Roberta Flack, people like that, opening for Three Dog Night. It was just amazing, and doing all the major shows, and they went all out on the group. And
Harry, give people an idea of when you first started working with those other guys, making that first record. What was the
Well,
chemistry? What was the chemistry like? What was the process like?
it was surreal, man, because I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. We would go to the studio and they would say, okay, here's the groove, here's the lyrics, sing. And okay, I would sing, and then they would check it out. All of us, they had ideas for each one of us. And so we just kept working and working and working on the tunes that they had. Gave me just a little more time, kind of went out over the others. So we did background to everything, and then they put it out. And they had what I appreciated about them, the technology and the science behind making an album. There was a radio station in Windsor, Ontario, that evidently had some kind of call frequency that gave them power over most of the United States. And if something went into that station, everyone could, because I can remember sitting in the recording sessions, and they recorded to the same frequency of that station. So those kinds of things. But there was much more involved than just that. And it was done, the science of it blew my mind, quite frankly. I had to realize how bright these guys were. They just didn't throw a tune together. I did a Beatles tune, and we got a call from the Beatles and saying, man, we just love that tune. And I did a tune called Come Together, and they loved it. I never felt satisfied with it. Well, I'm a hard guy to satisfy. But that's one of the reasons why I'm not a millionaire. They were.
It was only within a year of the original that you guys did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They thought out things, man. And I appreciated that because I had no idea what I was getting into on the level that I came from, working bars for $50 a night, four 1-hour sets, plus pushing a B3 on a piece of wood that we found roller skates for, so that we can get it down the streets, do the gig, and then push it back. I loved it too, by the way. But this was the music before I went to the chairman of the board. The chairman of the board, they were professionals. The whole situation was different. The way we dressed, we rehearsed a lot, we exercised a lot. It was serious. We even were taught how to work a stage, and a lot of things like that, which I was totally unaware of, and I appreciated the professionalism of the other artists because they've gone through the same thing.
So did you play as well as sing on the record, or just sing?
I just sang. I played guitar. Edward came to me one time and he said, I'd like you to do an album. And I said, okay. He said, what instrument do you like? Well, at the time, I really wasn't playing anything. And I said, guitar. So he reached in his pocket and he gave me $75. He said, go buy a guitar. You got 2 weeks. So I had to get on a bus and travel around to Ypsilanti, Dearborn, Michigan, looking for bands. And I had to go and tell them, you guys want to record with me? Who are you? I'm with this group called Chairmen on the Board. You're a joke. No, I'm not, man. So I had a bracket. I wrote some bunch of tunes, and when we recorded, and right in the middle of one of my tunes, they walked and said, hurry up. We're gonna write some hits. I thought, these buggers. So that was the pressure they put on you. And I liked it, quite frankly. But yeah, that was
how old were you at the time of the first record?
27. Yeah.
I just want to state, to set the table for the listeners and viewers, a couple of facts that Holland Dozier Holland, they started Invictus and Hot Wax
That's
labels,
right.
and there were a few marquee acts like Chairman of the Board, Frida Payne, and George Clinton's
Yeah.
Parliament,
Yeah.
a couple others.
Yeah.
But you guys helped really set it up for them by having such a big hit.
Set it up for everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have the million sellers. And not only that, all of our albums were like 400,000 or 500,000. You know, they weren't million sellers, but in today's market, they all would have been gold records, you know. So amazing. And of course, I only realized that two ways. My royalty checks, which I still get. But looking back at the result of the things and how they got there and how much time and effort and money that they put into promoting, it's a hell of a business, man. I swear to God, you know. But you know, General was when General tried to do it when he left and went down south, he wanted me to go with him. I said, I can't, man. I can't do it. You know, I wanted to. And he says, well, man, you got folks down there. I said, I got folks here. I got folks all over the United States, Mississippi, Arkansas, Florida, everywhere. But I said, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go back home. And I did. I came back home and started doing the blues.
Yeah. I gotta ask you, Harry, how did you feel when you first heard yourself on the radio, though?
Blew my mind. When I was coming back home, I'd left Detroit, and I had this old, remember Nash Ramblers? They had the comics. That's what I had, a Nash Rambler. And I got about halfway home, and I turned the radio on, I heard, give me just a little more time. And I said, what? I pulled off the side of the road. I couldn't believe it, man. It blew my mind. I got home. All my relatives says, Harrison, you got to go back. You're getting a call for, you guys sold 400,000 copies on the weekend. I said, holy cow. So I put some gas in the car and came back. It was like surreal. That's the only way I can put it at that time, because I never ever experienced anything like that in my life, and that's why to this day I respect and admire the whole situation. You know, things weren't always great, but so what? You're working hard in life. Sure, you're going to have pitfalls, and there's going to be disagreements and all that stuff. If they're not, what are you doing? If no one disagrees with you every once in a while. No, it was fine, man. Yeah. Frankly.
I had the Holland brothers on the show a while back, and I think it was Eddie. That one was super talkative, and the other didn't say that much. I think Brian was more quiet. What kind of impression did those guys make on you?
I can't say that. I remember Lamont Dozier and I were friends. Why? Because Eddie wanted me, for some reason, to record with him. Not anybody else. He said that he and I should get together and record. I said, okay. So we did. And I did an album, Hypnotic Music, with him. But I remember each one of them had a specific talent. I remember very vividly. They used to call me and say, come on over, we're recording. And I would sit in the back from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. No one else was there except Holland Dozier and Holland. Eddie did that for a reason. He wanted me to learn. I didn't think about it at the time. It's just that I was just happy to be there. But I remember Lamont one time made the Detroit Symphony Orchestra repeat one line over 20 times until finally the conductor of the orchestra said, could you tell me what the problem is? He said, everybody said, I'm looking at my charts. I'm looking, everybody's playing. He said, go back again. Went back right there. And the guy listened, he says, oh my God. And he started bowing to him. One of the violin players inverted a chord, and Lamont Dozier heard it. The guy leading the orchestra didn't. That's how good those guys were. When it came to lyrics, Eddie was brilliant. When it came to groove, that was Lamont. And you know what? They never argued with one another. They let each one do their thing, and they supported each other 100%. Like, no one said anything to Lamont when he kept telling the band to do it over and over. They just sat there, you know. And they were the same way if they wanted a lyric or the melody a certain way, or if they wanted the drum to do a certain thing. So they were a team that worked together, and that's what made it. They were like a community, you know. It worked that way, yeah.
Wow.
And
I've heard similar things like about Quincy Jones that way. You know, and some of these guys just can hear this most subtle thing. You know.
Yeah. There were other people like that too that had it. We had one guy that they come up with a tune, and we're in a hotel, and he would tune the instruments just with his ear. Yeah.
Perfect pitch. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I gotta, when I was preparing for this, Harry, I went through and I looked at the credits from the Chairmen of the Board albums, and I noticed that, at least on this source, they don't show the musicians on these albums. Can you give us an idea of who played on most of those?
They didn't. A lot of them was the Parliament, but there were other people that came too. They were accredited musicians. Some of them were young, some of them were older. I remember one time they brought this guitar player in from the Juilliard School of Music, and evidently he was one of the top guitar players that they'd had in years. And Eddie and them had him standing out, and they started the tune, and I said, "Go ahead." And the guy just looked at them and said, "What?" He said, "Play something." "Oh, I don't see any charts." He says, "We want to know what you feel." And I got that, you know. This guy froze because there were no charts, and he came in with the kind of an attitude that, man, I'm the top guy at so and so and so and so. If you threw the music up in the air, he could play it on the way down. That's how good he was. But if you took that away from and put a drum and a bass for it, he didn't know where the hell he was. He couldn't do it. And that's one of the reasons why these guys were so successful. And I was around a lot of people that were just like that. It was amazing, man. It was amazing.
I got to press you a little bit on George Clinton and those guys, the Funkadelic band, because a lot of people have watched this show, are fans of them, and
me too.
They don't know that much about those really early years. You know, they know more about them when they, got really big with the Mothership and George Clinton became famous. But back then, they were relatively unknown. They were kind of a cult band. They were playing sessions. Do you have any other memories or stories related to those guys?
Oh yeah, I had a funk band in Canada, and I got asked to open for this group that was coming through from Detroit, the Funkadelics. I said, okay. Now this was a very popular place. It held maybe 2,000 people, and the Parliament Funkadelics went on before us. The people were crowding the stage. Oh God, I never forgot that. And when George and them came out on the stage, the crowd backed up, man. I mean, they were knocking one another down to get away from the front of that stage, scared the shit out of them. And then they started playing, some funk shit, right? And went around, and the audience was like, they'd never seen anything like that. I said, what are these guys doing? But by the end of the night, people were like, but they were mesmerized. That was the first time I met and heard the Funkadelic, and the audience was terrified of them. They'd come out, it's unbelievable. And it was the first time that I saw dress up, the stage, what they wore and how they were on the stage. So many bands tried to copy them, their groove, their funk. The Parliaments, for me, they were the beginning of all funk music for me. I didn't heard anybody quite like them, And so, and George, later on, I went to visit him. I think his wife was Swedish. And I went to see him. He knocked on the door, and there's George at the kitchen sink doing dishes. And his wife is behind him fixing his hair, telling him about, you got to get rid of that so-and-so and so-and-so. He's such a blah, blah, blah. And I looked at him, looked at me, said, the boss is talking. So it was kind of like I saw the human side of him. When he walked out of that door, he was the guy that was going to take the heat for anything that went wrong, you know. Unless his wife decided that you're going too slow in this person is like hurting you, kind of thing. She's a smart woman. But I only met her the one time, but I had a lot of respect for her. And a lot of respect for George too. It's a tough business. He told me that when he was there, he told me how much money he was making, which was a lot. But he also told me that record labels he didn't stay very long with record labels because they would get tired of him. Because they couldn't control him, they couldn't tell him what to do. But at that time, he was playing all the universities in the United States. The kids were crazy about it, you know. So it was just that kind of stick-to-itiveness, man. Yeah.
And he'd already been around quite a while before then, you know, doing doo-wop and, you know. Yeah.
My friend, Billy, I call him Billy Bass. The guy playing bass on We Got the Funk. Billy and I were tight. Come from Philadelphia. And we traveled to Europe. He was part of the Parliament. You know, but yeah, just good players. Guitar player was amazing. McKinley Jackson was a genius. He's the guy that could tune a band in a dressing room with his ear. And he and I are still good friends. McKinley Jackson out of Detroit. Yeah, he's amazing. Love the guy.
Billy Bass still with us. God bless him. He's
yeah.
What's that saying that you don't tolerate fools? You know, he's got kind of that attitude.
You don't suffer a fool. And yeah, we got along really well together. I think we're the only ones left. I don't know, but we were really tight. Matter of fact, I went to his house. They were quite middle class, and you know. There was nothing fancy or loud about them. And Billy was just a bright guy. But he did tell me he went to Sly Stone, had something going on, so he wanted to play some bass on it. And I can't tell you what he said because it's a swear word. But very succinctly, Sly looked at him and said, off. I said, oh, yeah. Told him to get up. I guess Sly was sitting on a chair in the middle of this thing, and he was telling each person what to play. He was a bright guy too, but he didn't hang on to what was given him, you know, in the right way.
Did you meet Sly ever?
Briefly, and I couldn't. I thought it was just a little bit too much. I loved his band were killers. It's the same thing with the same thing with James Brown. You know, James Brown's band was great, but the experience I had with him down in Jacksonville, But
was chairman of the board on the same bill with James Brown? Is that what happened? Or?
Yeah, we opened for him. Yeah.
Chairman of the board, you sang the lead on the actual song that's chairman of the board, right?
That's me.
Yeah. So how excited were you to get a hit with, you know, you leading on it?
Well, I wasn't so sure that, well, first time when I started, I was an English major, so I'm looking at the lyrics, and the lyrics said, I'm the chairman of the board. I started singing, I'm the chairman of the board. And Eddie stopped me. He said, Harrison, you're singing for black people. It's not the board, it's the boat. I said, all right, okay. I said, listen, it's no problem. I studied Chaucer, for Christ's sake, and that's English is a lot harder than this shit. I can do it, not a problem. But they didn't know that I had relatives in Detroit that, you know, I grew up with it all my life. But they had never told me that's what they wanted. That's one of the reasons why when Patches. Yeah. When they didn't take Patches, I was pissed off. That's the reason why I left the group, you know, because they said it was too country and and I said, man, it's music. We're artists. What the hell are you guys talking about? You know, you've just crossed my line, you know. And I remember the day that that was written. General and I were in the car, and Danny and Eddie, and we were down in Mississippi, and I looked out the window, and it's flat forever. I looked, and there was one man with a hoe. Now, I grew up on a farm, so I knew what he was doing. He was doing it, but he was by himself, and it was like 90 degrees. And I looked over here, General. I said, General, look at that, man. I said, he's got to be doing that. And General looked up, he says, man, he damn sure does. Those were his exact words. Later he says, give me a piece of paper, give me a piece of paper. Danny started looking for him, come with this little pencil and a little piece of paper, and he started writing. I was born on a farm down there, you know. So ragged folks used to call me Patches. Papa used to laugh at everybody, but he done the best. He started writing Patches in that car that day because I saw that man out that window. But that feeling of it hit General. We started to play it, and by the time we got back to Detroit, they had heard about the tune and how it was going over. And I thought, man, we've had Give Me Just One More Time. This is another hit. You know? God damn it. I said, this is it, man. That's the Chairman. I'll be great. Have a million seller. We recorded it. They took the band, the background singers, the music, and even the way General sang it and gave it to somebody else. And he won a Grammy. I was pissed. I choked. Wow. I said, I'll see you guys later. I can't do this. They didn't want to do because they had this black thing, right? And I said, you know, I didn't come here for that. I came here for the music and for the artistry. However, I'm not going to argue with success, folks. I can't do it. But this is me. See you later. But
they put that song. The song was on both albums too.
I recorded it once. Yeah, right here. Yeah, on one of my albums. I got a call from Eddie and them. When they went to Los Angeles, they wanted me. So what do we have to do to get you to come down to Los Angeles? So I said, well, I made outlandish things. And then he said, you know, man, since your picture was in Times Square for 6 months, it was more than that. So they called me up on it, and I still had to say no. I didn't want to go. But, yeah.
Harry, let me ask you about Ron Dunbar. He was one of the principal songwriters, and later on, I know he was also involved with George Clinton, Parliament, Funkadelic in that scene.
Mm-hmm. My mother told me years ago, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. So I'm going to leave it right there.
Uh-oh.
No.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Office, and he had a stack of records, albums that he was listening to from people that would try to be heard. So he must have had something that Edward liked. But he also horned himself in on a lot of tunes that he had nothing to do with. And he messed with General. And even General and I talked about that, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But it wasn't kind. Yeah. These guys had a way of looking at things, and they would muscle their way and just forget about it. General wanted to join. He wanted to join. He was writing all the hits. He was writing all the hits and putting their record label on the map all around the world. And he asked them, could he become a partner? And they refused him. Mm-hmm. So things like that.
Obviously, there was, some stuff going down that wasn't on the up and up because the labels didn't last that long.
No, they try. In this business, you don't, people doing business are not going to stay with you very long if they can't trust you. That's the only thing I can say. Because I remember when we went, what was it, Columbia Records or something like that. It didn't last very long. I thought, man, here we go. It could be good, but no, things were starting to. I could feel the ship was going down. You know what I mean? So I don't know what happened there, but it was time for me to exit stage. When Danny and I and General and I talked, and General told me he was going back home. And he asked me would I like to come down, and I said no. I said, that's your home, man. I said, go home.
Motion
Your
detected
family,
in the
you know.
backyard.
I'll be okay. We'll stay friends. And we did. We talked a lot. Danny too.
Were you still part of Skin I'm In?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the funkiest of the records, I would say, right there.
That's the Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
That's them guys. Yeah. I loved it. General didn't like it because he liked the doom, 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 but I like I like that groove, right? So, yeah.
They didn't play behind you live at all, did they?
Yeah.
They did?
They plays with us all the time.
Oh,
We
wow.
over to France or to England, and a lot of the gigs that was the band. It was mostly the Parliament.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. For the record, I want viewers and listeners to realize, just give me a little bit more time. Not only went to number 8 R&B, but it was a top 5 pop hit, went to number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And You've Got Me Dangling on a String went to number 19 R&B. Your track, Chairman of the Board, went to number 10 R&B.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's Tuesday went to 14, and Pay the Piper went to number 4 on the R&B chart. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys were killing it.
Oh, we were kicking. We would have been number 1, but unfortunately, 2 of the best tunes ever written beat us out. Yesterday and Bridge Over Troubled Water were number 1 and number 2. I had to come over again. They were great tunes, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How conscious were you guys of wanting to make sure that you didn't sound like any of the other male vocal groups, that you had your own distinct sound?
Never entered our minds. Never. I don't ever remember. The only person who practiced that kind of singing was Eddie Custis. He had a beautiful voice, but he actually probably could have sang opera if he wanted to. And he was always in good voice, always singing and humming, and he could sound like Frank Sinatra. He could sound like, so he would actually try to pin their styles, but no one else in the group did that. But it was fine. It worked for him.
And also off that Skin I'm In, Finders Keepers got to number 7. So even on the last record, you guys had a top 10.
Oh yeah, and those albums were selling hundreds of thousands. This new thing that they've got going on, calling themselves the chairman of the board, they're not. I don't know what they're doing, but I've had conversations with them, and I told them, well, as long as you're not interfering with the original stuff, God bless you, good success, because I'm kind of like left wing when it comes to giving a person a chance to make a living. You know what I mean? And for that reason, I respect them, and I respect what they're doing, and they work very hard at it. So I don't have a problem with it. They want to call themselves the chairman, whatever, but they're not.
There's so many of those out there now that are doing the cruises and stuff like that, and they don't have any.
None. Just using the name. It's too. Hey, I'd rather make a name for myself and have somebody use it. Especially if I've written the tunes, I still own them.
Well, honestly, they're really like a tribute act, not the act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for that, fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So you took a break for a while.
Well, I became a supervisor at Allied Chemical, and I was a millwright mechanic and a supervisor. I had a shift. I worked for 12 years, long enough to get a pension, but I also was playing on my own, doing blues, working quite a bit. And when I came back, because I knew I was going to do that. So, now I play banjo, mandolin, cigar box, 12-string, and I do the blues. I'm getting ready to do another album. And it's going to be right back to, I'm naming it after this famous donut that I loved. It's called Old Fashioned Plain.
Hmm.
That's what I'll be doing.
Who are some of your biggest blues influences?
Oh my God. I like the cats that came out of Texas, man. Before the slide guitar players in Memphis. I like the cats that everybody tries to copy. That's the blues that I like. I feel them, you know. Everything from field haulers to the original blues. Everybody's still realizing how bloody smart these guys were. They're still trying to copy what they do on the guitar. But yeah, I'm loving the older players. Always have. They're my favorite. Yeah.
What you came back with a record in 2003, but what kind of inspired you to say, hey, I've been playing this blues and doing some shows or whatever. I'm going to go back and do a record now.
I felt that I could, I was getting a lot of positive vibes from people, and they asked me, why don't you do an album? And they helped me, financially, because I didn't have any money. So I did that. And the very first one I put out got nominated for a Juno. And that got me jobs a lot. And I did another one. It got nominated for a Juno. I did another one. It got nominated for a Juno. I did another one. It won a Juno. So that way it just kept going, So I like to write, and I like to I like to play live. It's fun. Yeah, I've never been very good just kind of sitting around doing nothing.
And I'm called the mostly.
Tell me, stop trying to shovel all that snow.
I'll give you the blues. It's unfortunately these days you don't have to look far to find something to inspire blues, but
No.
yeah, but it's acoustic blues,
Exactly.
yeah. Did you ever dabble with electric or just always the acoustic?
I don't feel confident with it, and there's just too many damn good guitar players that I can bring them and sit in with me, And there's a guy that I used on my last album. He comes from Nashville. Came up, Colin Lindsay, and I've asked Bonnie Raitt. She wants to. Taj Mahal, he's into it. Guy Davis, I dig him. Notice they're all, where they're all from, because I love everybody up here and all that kind of stuff. But no, these folk grew up with it. You know what I'm talking about? And I just love their groove. They don't play. It's not Blues 101. It's called I feel this, let's do this kind of thing, So, yeah. Yeah.
And you're all self-taught pretty much, harmonica and...
Yeah, it's all done by ear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything I do by ear. I find it. If I sing a note, that's how I learned to play guitar. I sing a note and I would find it. I hit the note and I'd look at the book and say, what is that note? And I found a note. Oh, so what is the key to go? And I found, is that how you put your fingers to do that? Oh, I do that. Then I realized that I was singing a certain pattern. So that's how I taught myself. It was fun.
Did you feel as much affinity for the blues, Harry, back at Chairman of the Board years?
Oh, yeah. The blues is what started me. I played harmonica from the time I was 7 years old. Sonny Terry, you ever heard of Sonny Terry and Brown and McGee?
Harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sonny used to be in the town here, and he was playing quite a bit. I asked him, can I take some lessons from him? I was 12. And he said, yeah, come back to the hotels. And he said, bring a bottle of wine. So I said, I'm 12 years old. I'm going to get a bottle of wine. So MacGyver hit me. I went down to the wine store and I saw a guy out there that looked like he was having the heebie-jeebies, no money, on a bumming to take a bottle of wine. And I went up to him, I said, "You buy me a bottle of wine and I'll buy you one." He looked at me and he said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 12. I can't go in there." He said, "Son," he says, "I was 12 when I started. You should not." I said, "It's not for me, it's for somebody else." "You sure?" All right. So he did. It came out and he gave me the bottle of wine. So I went up. He was waiting for me in the hotel. I walked in. He said, "What harmonica do you have?" I said, "I have all of them." He said, "Did you bring the wine?" I said, "Yep." So I put it on the table and he grabbed his harmonica and he played one thing. And he said, "There, come back next week, bring some wine." What he did went in my head as if somebody had just punched. I heard everything. So I did. I come back next week with a bottle of wine. He said, "You learned that?" And I played it. And he looked at me and said, "Boy, where you from?" And I said, "Well, I learned from my uncle. He's from Arkansas." "Did you got an uncle in Arkansas?" "Yeah, I got an uncle in Arkansas, and I got one in Texas, and I got one in Florida, and I got a whole bunch in Detroit." He said, "Man," he said, "look up there." I looked up there, and he had about 5 bottles of wine. He said, "Bring one of them down there." So we jammed. I'm 12. And Brownie came in and caught us. He was pissed right off. Told me to get the hell out and go home. But that was my first harmonica lesson. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a marine style, right? Not a chromatic.
Yeah. Well, the marine style, at a time when I was, they were like, what, 75 cents or something like that. It was cheap. But so gas was only like 20 cents for a gallon, too. Who knows? But I've got my 83rd birthday coming up in a week and a half. So, and I'm booked up to 2026. I got to take it easy.
You're just about, I think you're the same age as George Clinton.
Yeah.
You might be born the same year.
Oh, March 9th.
So what would you say are a couple of the, which project are you most proud of?
The last one I did, actually, this is Thanks for Tomorrow, because I did something with Ruthie Foster, her and I doing something together. It's not a blues album. It's, I guess, an R&B pop kind of thing, I felt good. The guys that I was using were all professional players, played for some of the top acts in the world. My bass player is coming back from Memphis right now. He's down there recording. Another guy is out west. Another guy is in Quebec. Got a show coming up next week. And then the next day, I'm working with another guy who worked with the Thunderbirds, and their album got nominated for a Grammy. I'm working with him. He's a guitar player. He's from Hamilton, but he worked with the Thunderbirds and helped self-produce the album. I wrote some stuff for him too. So it's exciting, I feel it's wonderful. Yeah.
Wow. So you've pretty much recorded the next one already, or just?
No.
Oh.
I'm making myself suffer, making sure that I'm confident with what I want to do and who I can get to play, on it, and how I'm going to approach it. All of those things come first, eh? So once I get that, because I don't go into the studio to learn the song. I go in the studio to do the song. So the people that come with me have to have some kind of, so I like to give everybody a chance. We'll get together and rehearse and go over it. I want to try certain people, see how I feel about them, and whether I'm going to use that one or not. I'm not looking for stars. The guys that, can throw the music up in the air and they can play it on the way coming down. I'm looking for, there's a lot of guys around that feel the music, Yeah.
How far do you venture out from your base to play?
To play.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years, I've been playing in Europe, Croatia, Latvia, Finland, France, England, Germany. I should say Italy. Um, you name it, and then across Canada. But I want to start playing in the States again. Because that's where I got my start. That's one of the reasons why I told the people the last time where I said I don't think I'm coming back. I'm going home. I'm gonna play more around my own country. Um, and do that. So. And so I am. I'm playing across Canada. Things are the words out that I'm here and I want to play. So they're asking me. I'm doing solos as well as with the band. I'm thinking about putting a band together, but I know so many players. I don't have a problem calling them up and saying, "Let's do this," kind of thing. And I also can play solo. Take my cigar box and just do a night of blues with my harmonica. It's great. Stamp on the floor. Everything's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about it. You can just do it simple, keep it simple. It's all about the feel, and maybe some blues fests.
Yeah.
You do any of the blues fests type things?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Or there's a lot of bars too. Like there's a lot of places where you can play in and around where I live that I don't mind playing, and I feel comfortable with it. I'm doing a mega thing on the 3rd, thousands of people, and then I'm doing the next night. It's already sold out, but it's sold out to 150 people, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. Harry, if somebody wanted to, let's say they're familiar with your chairman of the board stuff, if they wanted to explore your blues, which album would you recommend that they sample first?
High country blues, because when I went to see my aunt in Tennessee, I told her I was from what they would call the high country, because where I live used to be called Upper Canada. So when I went, there was a high country, and it's the high country blues. So that's a good album.
2007.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you if you could share if there's one or two experiences from the road that were just especially unforgettable that you could mention.
The one that comes to mind right away is when I was in Detroit and I was playing, and I was singing and playing the harmonica. And all of a sudden I looked up, I saw these two people walking towards the stage. One of them was taller than the other. And as I got closer, I recognized that it was Stevie Wonder. And he got up on the stage with me. He's talking to me and I'm singing and playing. And so finally I said, "Steve, do you know this tune?" He said, yeah. And I said, "Well, you take the next line and I'll play harp." Well, I was singing in G. It's like the top of my, and he came in an octave above me. Man, I thought to God I was just going to turn into it was so good. So I played the harp, and he's invited me over to his place and talking to me on the stage, right? "Come on, you got to visit." So that was memorable. That was memorable. And then
What year do you think maybe that was?
It's the late 60s. Yeah.
Wow, playing harmonica with Stevie. I mean, he knows how to play a little bit.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah. And then Alicia Keys a couple of years ago sent me a happy birthday. I was knocked up by that. Yeah.
Have you met her?
No, I've never met her in my life.
Just a fan?
I guess.
Huh.
It's your birthday, Harry, Okay.
Now, do you have some other credits that we didn't mention? Because I saw somewhere that you played on Marvin Gaye. What's going on? Is that true or no?
Well, that I never got credit for it, but when they did that album, see, that was kind of a mysterious day. It was spiritual. They did tunes over and over and over and over again, right? And finally, because if you listen to that album, he's doing things vocally that are amazing. And I played harmonica on some of them, but I think it didn't make it. But I had a copy where I was playing harmonica, but it didn't come out. I played harmonica for all of the acts there. Was making a lot of extra money playing harmonica for the Four Tops, the Supremes, you name it. But they would experiment with things, but if it didn't quite fit what they wanted to do, they didn't use it. But it didn't stop them from asking me to. So I felt it was great that I was on his album. I know that I did it, but no credits. And whether or not they buried it or not, I don't know. But I have a copy of where I'm playing it. So anyway, it was fine. And I liked Marvin, man. He was actually a drummer at first, eh? And I guess the singer didn't show up, and he started singing, and that was the end of his drumming career. What a voice. So, yeah.
Huh.
A lot of things like that, man. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask guests, Harry, if they could share, if you had to just only have 5 records you could listen to, if you were isolated, stuck somewhere, are you able to pick 5 that would be right up there, sort of your pantheon of just the greatest 5, not of your own, of other people you admire?
Nina Simone. Love Nina Simone. Her Feel. Sunhouse.
Sunhouse.
Blind Blake. Yeah. Skip James. Oh, Mississippi John Hurt. He's the guy. I just love these guys. These guys, all in that area,
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a bucket list you have for anything you want to accomplish musically that you maybe haven't done, or anyone that you would just love to be able to jam with, one time?
I'd love to do a show with Bonnie Raitt. Eric Bibb and he's over in Europe, but he recorded one of my tunes. And I like working with Eric. But I kind of don't have anybody like really special, but I look for that person that has that thing, and then boom, it happens. And you can find it in places where you never thought you were ever going to find it. So it's hard for me to say Bonnie Raitt, and then I'm going to be walking by a bar one day and there's going to be a woman and they're playing and singing. It's going to blow my mind, with her talent.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, some of the best. I mean, for sure, those that are not even discovered that way.
Yeah.
But Buddy Guy's still out there doing it. God bless him too.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, General and I used to do that when we were in Detroit. We would just go and check out bands because these kids were kicking ass, right? Nobody knew who they were or anything, but Jesus, they were just young kids playing in clubs in Detroit, and it was just they were serious. It was fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, Detroit.
Oh, what a town.
Yeah. So, Harry, really appreciate your time. Why don't you give the people maybe a website or any other contact info where they can keep up with you and they can get your great CDs or albums?
Well, I'm with Electrify Records, out of Toronto. So if you check out Electrify Records, you'll be able to get, information on me. And it's my buddy. We call ourselves cousins because I was going to the States one time and the guy at the border took our passports I looked at them and handed me his passport, and he got mine. So I looked at him. I said, "Well, I guess we're cousins. We're going to Memphis." I was I was challenging all the blues players in the world, and I played by myself. And as a solo artist, I won. It was a duo that took top prize, but I took the top for a solo artist down there. But his name is Andrew Galloway. He's a good Scot. Andrew Galloway, Electrify Records. Check it out. And you'll see everything on there. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Do you ever pull out, if you're doing a show, do you ever pull out a Chairman song and just do it, or do it in a blues feel?
Can't get to it, not doing. I'm the chairman, or give me just a little more time. I have to do it.
Okay.
People demand it, so I do. Yeah, I play it, and I play the chords, and I play it on the guitar, or I just sing it with the band. Bands love to do it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's appropriate. And
I'm the chairman of the board. I do those. Yep. Yeah. I might
fantastic.
do it. Dance to the music. Don't you know? You got to pay to the piper. Ask your mama. I asked General why he did, and he said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, it works, man." I said, "Well, if I don't do that, when I do that, people get, hey, where's brr?" Then I get everybody. Okay, you got to go brr or drr, something like that.
Yeah, it's a signature.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Harry, thank you so much, man. It's been great getting to know you and talking to you about music. And
nice pleasant chat, lad.